Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for coming back for yet another week. So I'm actually out here today at Weeden Island Preserve in St. Petersburg because the topic that I'm going to talk to you about is going to require me to kind of look back a little bit on my history, do a little bit of storytelling, and in the end, I'm going to actually give you a resource that I've created that we're going to kind of crowdsource together, but I've got a good start on it. But it's going to be a resource that we're going to use in our community that's going to help everyone learn and figure out how to identify brown spots or brown patches or areas of the lawn that seem to be struggling. Because brown spots in the lawn are one of those things that drive lawn care nuts crazy. And so I get it, you want to take care of them. But as G.I. Joe always said, knowing is half the battle. And so let's get some knowledge under our belts before we make course of action and strategies to combat brown spots and brown areas in our lawns. I was trying to sound like kind of hardcore in that. Did it come off that way? Okay, so the first thing, before we decide if we got fungus, insect problems, or whatever it is, we've got to change your mindset just a little bit. I need you to start thinking like a detective, because that's essentially what you are. You're a lawn detective. And a detective asks many questions, looks at his surroundings, looks at circumstances in every way possible, from every angle possible, before he makes a decision on a suspect. Things like time of year, what's been applied and when, what's the weather like, what's the humidity like, what are the nighttime temperatures like, what kind of mechanical influence might there be, are there trees, what's the sun-shade ratio, and most importantly, what do other lawns right next door, across the street, and even down the street that have been treated similarly or just the same, what do they look like right now? Those are just a few questions that you can ask. So let me take you through an actual scenario from years ago when I was at True Green. I didn't take a lot of pictures when I was there. I should have. Camera phones weren't really a big deal back in 2008, 9, and 10 when I was working there, but if they would have been, I'd have a ton more pictures. But I actually do have pictures of this one because the customer was demanding that we replace his lawn because he said we burnt it. So once I gathered all the evidence and was ready to close this case, I had to have some pictures to back it up. And those pictures are going to work for me and you today. Let me tell you the story. So this was a commercial property that we had been treating for a couple of years, and they were like townhomes, and the call came in that one of the lawns in the back had been burnt after our application. So I had to go out and do a little investigation and see what was going on. So I came up to the site, and I want you to realize that this particular unit is about halfway down. So there's a whole line of units, and all of the lawns up and down back were nice and green, dark green, and this unit, kind of towards the middle, there was this weird looking dead pattern just behind this one single house. So there was my first clue right there, is I knew how the other lawns around this one had been treated and what they were treated with, and I knew it was exactly the same as the burned lawn. So right now I've already eliminated quite a few questions just by looking at the neighbors' lawns and realizing what their treatment patterns were and how those related to the burned lawn. Obviously this was easy for me because I knew that we treated all of the lawns around there and the same guy treated them on the same day. But what I'm trying to do is get you to adjust your thinking just a little bit and throw that into your own scenario. This is just an example to try to get your mind thinking in a certain pattern. So the next question I asked then is, what's been applied here? I could look back at our invoice and see what was applied. I could also look at the equipment that was used to apply the application, because that is something that is important when it comes to identifying the shape. And that's another thing that you want to look for is the shape irregular or is it more natural? Does it look like a mechanical shape? And in this case, I was kind of hit or miss, and that's why I needed to look at what equipment had been used to create that shape, supposedly. Not only did I care about the equipment, but I cared about what was put down. And what I mean by that is what material was put down and how was it applied, granular or liquid. Now at True Green, weed control was always liquid, but the means of application was different. And in this case, because I had my invoice, but you would have your own knowledge of your own lawn, I looked back and a ride-on spreader was used. And the ride-on spreaders also have a spray tank and a spray unit on them. Of course, the next question then would be, but he could have whipped his hand can out and used that, and you're exactly right. And again, I looked at the invoice, and in this case, there was no hand canning done around this area. In fact, there wasn't any hand canning done at all in this application. Another thing I noticed is that up towards the top, or up towards where the patio was nearer to the customer's back door, there was a lot more damage and death up there than there was down the slope and towards the lake. So then my next question was to the homeowner, who I did call on the phone, and I asked him, I said, when did you notice this? And he told me, well, I noticed it right after your application that was done. And our application had been done just 48 hours before. So now I'm really starting to get a little bit suspicious, right? Because let me show you what liquid burn looked like when it happened, when we either had a hot mix or even a little bit too much weed control applied. It has this kind of orangey look to it, and definitely the lawn doesn't mat down like this within only 48 hours. It'll still stay sticking up, but it'll just be this orangey color about 48 hours later. If you guys have ever applied glyphosate, you've seen that maybe 3 to 4 days later even, it'll be like an orangey color, but the grass is still standing up. It's not completely matted down and completely dead like this. You see, someone that lives in an apartment building that hardly ever goes outside at all and doesn't care for their lawn and doesn't have to care for their lawn, they're not somebody that's really going to be noticing. So I don't trust them when they say 48 hours ago. Based on what I'm seeing, it was probably 10 or 12 days earlier. I can just tell because I know that this person doesn't give a rat's rear end about the lawn. They don't look at it. They don't care. They're just somebody that just came out and just put 2 and 2 together when really they're not observant. And so I asked the guy, I'm like, how often do you actually go out there? And he said, well, it's been really hot because it's July. So I haven't actually been out there in quite a while. So I had to use a little verbal judo technique on the guy and say, sir, I happen to notice that you have your curtains drawn in the back all day long. And it looks like most of your neighbors do too, just because you have a west-facing back lawn here. And I'm sure that sun just blares in there in the afternoon and all into the evening, doesn't it? Especially because it's July, the days are a lot longer. He was like, oh yeah, man, you wouldn't believe it. It gets hot as heck back there. And I said, yeah, so you probably don't even really go out back very much. And he says, no, I sure don't. I really don't. And he goes, and that's why I'm really pissed that you guys burned it back there, because I'm not back there to check up on you. What do you think? I need to be back there checking up on you? He says to me. So I was able to calm him down from that just by saying, sir, I'm really sorry, and I want you to know I'm going to do everything in my power to get this taken care of for you. That's why I got to get the facts here. And this is where I turned it around on him, and I said, because it looks to me like some of that's leached into the waterway behind you, and I don't want to have to call the authorities on that. Now, his reaction to that was going to be a big tell for me, because if he wasn't guilty, if he hadn't done anything, and you could probably see where I'm going with this, if he hadn't done anything, he would say, yeah, call him. I want True Green to get in trouble, blah, blah, blah. But instead, he said, well, no, I'm not sure if there's a need to call the government in. I mean, it's just a retention pond. So hopefully you guys can see where I'm going with this, and I'm starting to get some information from it. I already know a lot of things, and now I know that he probably never goes out back. So for him to tell me that this just now happened right after our application, I'm not believing it. Are you guys seeing how we really are almost like detectives here? Isn't this fun? And then, of course, the biggest tell, when I go ahead and threaten to bring in the authorities, right, because of some waterway being infected, now the guy starts to back off. Sir, so I'm stumped right now. I'm just going to go ahead and call in the EPA and just make sure that this waterway hasn't been infected. Are you sure there's anything you're not telling me? And I shut my mouth. And that's when he came clean and he said, you know, I did spray some weed killer back here because back in June, we were gonna have a party back here and I wanted to kill some of these weeds that were alongside of my patio over here. I'm not sure if you guys can see them in the pictures, but there's a cement patio behind every one of these homes. And next to that is a landscaped area. That was not part of our contract for spraying. It's supposed to be an area that the homeowners have to kind of do their own thing. Most of them had rocks in there, a few had grass, and some had even planted some flowers and things like that. This guy had planted nothing, and so all he had was a big weed pit right next to his cement patio. And that's when he admitted it. He said he had bought some stuff at the store and he had sprayed it to kill those weeds. I did ask him to produce the bottle, and of course he said he didn't have it anymore. Another tell, because then that means he used the whole bottle on a little area that was less than 50 square feet. So at this point my job was done. I had two things to believe here, and neither one of them was our fault. One is I would just believe that he sprayed way too much up there, and then we probably got heavy rains, probably in the same day because he probably wasn't paying attention, and some of that Roundup leached its way all the way down the hill and burned out the lawn. Then the other scenario, or the other way that it could have gone down, is he could have actually just gotten carried away because he did have extra in the bottle after spraying his little 50 square foot area, and so he decided to go down the hill and try to spot spray some weeds that he may have seen there, and he ended up just killing those large areas all around. Now some of you might be saying, Alan, that was an easy scenario. And yes, it was an easy scenario, but you're going to have to question people in your household too sometimes for brown spots, let me tell you. You see, sometimes the people in your house can be your worst enemy, and they don't even mean to be, and that's why you have to question them a certain way, because they just don't think like we do. So what I'm going to do is I have a resource for you, which is a checklist of questions that you should ask if you're battling with brown spots in your lawn, and hopefully this will help you get to the bottom of things. By the way, if you do want one-to-one lawn coaching from me, I do offer that, and I'll put a link in the description below where you can sign up for that and get help for a couple of months. more astute among you are probably wondering, okay, Alan, so you're mixing up insecticide and fungicide together on film. What are you going to do with that? Well, you need to go to Facebook to check that out. I did a Facebook exclusive video telling you about some problems that I've discovered in my St. Augustine. So head on over there. I'll put a link below and up here in the corner. As always, your comments are welcome. I want to make this checklist something that we crowdsource. So if you guys can think of questions that should be on there that would be helpful, please let me know in the comments below. And if I think they would be helpful, I'll add them to the checklist. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So thanks a lot for watching today. I hope, as always, that this tip has been helpful to you. If it has, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut, and I'll see you in the lawn.